Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Needville Global Methodist Church's YouTube channel. This is our weekly Bible study, and I hope you're having a wonderful week. Every Wednesday, we're here at noon for our Bible study. So if you haven't hit that button for subscription yet to the channel, please go ahead and do so. That way you always know when the next video comes up. It'll send you that notification. And I encourage you to hit that like button down as well. That helps to get this video out to as many people as possible, which is exactly what we want to do. We want to be able to influence as many people and give information and all that kind of stuff to as many people as possible. So that like button always helps. Of course, I always encourage you to utilize the comment section below as well to let me know what you like, what you didn't like, what you'd like to see improved, maybe something that you'd like to hear about, a topic that you've been discussing with your small group, or something that's come up in your life that you have a question about. Please use that comment section below to let me know what you'd like to hear in these weekly studies. I'm always looking for new things to do, something that y'all would like to hear, something y'all would like to listen to, or information you need or want. So utilize that comment section down below. Now, today we're going to start a new series, if you want to call it that. But the past number of Bible studies, a series that we've done, they've been more about true Bible studies, right? Diving into scripture, diving into texts. We went through the catechism stuff about a month or so ago. And while all of that, while theology is always something that's practical, I wanted to do something a little different over the next coming weeks. So for the next 7 weeks, I'm going to be doing a study based on marriage. I know a number of y'all that watch the videos here, that are subscribers to this channel. You are married, or maybe you're someone who is looking to get married. Maybe you're single right now, or you have a relationship, you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend that, maybe that's the right person to go with. Maybe you're starting to think that line. Or maybe you're someone who is a widow, or you're divorced. If that is the case, then I would tell you that this series that is going to be talking about marriage is not always something that just has to be about marriage. What I mean is the fact that a lot about being in a good marriage is about being in a healthy, good relationship. And at the end of the day, we as human beings are meant to have these kinds of relationships. We really are. All the way back to Genesis, God, when he creates man, Adam is created, and God is like, you remember throughout all of Genesis, God continues to say, this is good. He creates this and says, this is good. He creates this and he says, this is good. And creates this, and he says, this is good. Then he creates man and he says, not good. And it's not the fact that man was bad. It was the fact that he looked down and realized that man was a relational animal, a relational creation. Man needed that relationship. He needed a partner. And if you remember in Genesis, Adam goes throughout all of creation, all of the animals, all the animals of land and sea and the air, and he names everything, but he never finds that partner. And it's not until God puts him to sleep, takes the rib, and makes Eve that finally he has a partner. And so just because we're going to be talking about marriage over the next number of weeks, if you are someone who you think, okay, marriage isn't for me anymore, whether it's because you're widowed and your husband or your wife is no longer here, or if that's the case, or maybe you're just someone who, just like the Apostle Paul, has decided, what, marriage is just not for me. The Apostle Paul said the same thing. He didn't think marriage was right for him. He never got married himself. So if that may be the case for you too. But at the end of the day, even the Apostle Paul had those kinds of relationships, that were like kind of relationship that was deep, intimate, and loving. So when we talk about all these things, this is something that whether you've got the wedding ring on your hand, or you're thinking about putting a wedding ring on your hand, or you've had that wedding marriage relationship and it no longer exists now, I urge you and tell you that you need to have that core group of people, that relationship with at least one other person on this planet, that you can be this open, this intimate, and this connected to. That's what we're meant to do. That's how we were created. That was what God intended when he made us. And so if you don't have that, I hope that through these things, you can either start that kind of a relationship, or you can build on an existing relationship to make it into something that is incredibly powerful, strengthening, and life-giving. So let's get into it. The book that I'm going to be using almost exclusively is a book that I use in my premarital counseling with anyone whom I marry, and I've used for a number of years. I'll show you. So right up here will be the image of the book that I'm going to be using. All right. It is called 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work, and it is by the leading foremost relationship expert, Dr. John Gottman. He has been doing this kind of research for years and years and years. And he has a lot of really good insight into how to make marriage work. And then, of course, I'm going to be throwing in scripture because, of course, Dr. Gottman is not a theologian. He is not a theist, or at least as far as I know, he doesn't talk about his faith in his books. His is more of a practical thing about how marriages need to work. But a lot of things that he talks about are very much Christian, very much part of it. And so I'm going to be throwing in scripture as well as we go through this. He has 7 rules, principles to build a solid relationship. And so I want to go through those over the next coming weeks. So we're going to start with the very first one. The very first chapter of this book is all about something called enhancing your love map. All right. So some of this, over as we go over these next couple of weeks, is going to be giving you definitions and new words and new language to use when you're talking to your spouse, your significant other, or the relationship that you're trying to build. All right. Now, what this means, a love map is literally just understanding the other person's life, how they have grown up, how they have come to where they are, everything about them, learning about their past experiences from their childhood all the way to today, their past relationships, their love interests. Some of the things that he talks about in the book is knowing their top 3 favorite songs and why those are their top favorite songs. What's their biggest fear? What are their dreams? What stresses them out? What are some of the major events that occurred in their lifetime? And I'm not talking about major events as in like worldwide events. I'm talking about major events for them. When they think about the top 5 most impactful events in their lives, do you know what those 5 events are? All of this comes back to knowing who they are at their core. This takes not only time, but desire from your end to listen, to ask those questions, and to really dive into the other person. Now, in the scriptures, it tells us something very similar to this. I'm going to go back to Genesis, although Christ references it and Paul references it in his letters, because it is the pure definition of marriage in the Bible. Genesis 2:24 says, "Therefore a man leaves his father and mother, clings to his wife, and they become one flesh." Now, we could talk about the sexual stuff about that as much as we want, but the bottom line is what it really means is that you become one, unified together, that you know each other as you know yourself, that you know your spouse, that you know your significant other as well as you know yourself. That is the goal. That is the ultimate goal of what marriage is supposed to be and how you build that strong relationship, the foundation of which starts right there. It starts with enhancing your love map, enhancing that relationship by knowing your partner deeply, intimately, and thoroughly. One of the shows that I loved watching, and it's ended a number of years ago, was the show How I Met Your Mother. If you ever watched it, it was a funny show. It was a good show. One of the best episodes of the entire show was towards the very end in the last season. And the Ted, the main protagonist, the guy that's been telling the story of how he met his wife to his kids, it's how the whole show works, right? He's talking to his now wife in the future a little bit, and they get to a point where she's like, I think I know all of your stories, because he's told her all of the stories about his life. And she gets to a point, she's like, I think I finally have heard all of your stories. That's what you want to get to, that kind of a relationship where you know each other so well that you can finish each other's stories, that you know each other so well that you've learned about them. That's what it means to enhance that love map, to enhance it to the point where you now know every crevice, you know every corner of that map. You're able to pinpoint so many things, because when you know all of that, you can start to truly understand the other person, to truly walk in their shoes. And if you haven't noticed, this is something that you can't do with a bunch of people. This is not something you're going to be able to do with more than one other person, because that's how much time and effort it's going to take to do it. Find that one person. All of us need that one person. Find that one person and dive into them, and have them do the same back to you. Dive into each other, learn each other, understand each other. That is the bedrock of an intimate and powerful marriage, is to know each other as well as you know yourself.